Welcome to the Parts Girl Podcast, powered by PartsEdge. We are excited to present our Fixed Operations Summer Camp Series. Your host, Kaylee Felio, will be joined by industry experts to discuss parts inventory control, special orders, lost sales, manufacturer programs, customer retention, and technicians. You're going to get it all in this special series.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Parts Girl Podcast. I'm really excited to be interviewing Angela for the second time. Welcome, Angela.
Hi, Kaylee. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's Friday, so we can't complain. Thank God it's Friday.
Neat.
Yes. And so just to do a real quick intro, even though this is your second time on the show, this is for people that don't know who you are, who you're with, all that good stuff.
I am Angela Willoughby. I am the Fixed Operations Analyst for Foundation Automotive Corp. We are in Colorado, Tennessee, and Texas. We got between 30 and 40 stores, somewhere around there. Pretty much lost count. Fun fact, I'm trying to get them to change my title to Fixed Operations Goddess.
Oh, I love that. You should just hyphenate it. Just automatically just do it.
Right? What are they going to do? You know, not for my business cards. I mean, as if.
Oh, man, I love it. And I love what we're talking about today because that's exactly it. We're talking about vendors and dealerships and just jumping right into it, the pitfalls of on the dealer side and the vendor side and the relationship. So I want to talk about just real situations that you've dealt with and how you overcome them. Where do dealerships fail and where do vendors fail?
Okay. I think some of the common pitfalls, right, is you don't use the application because maybe you didn't get enough training. There's complacency in it. Loss of revenue is a huge one that I see a lot. And I think that's why having third-party vendor management is so important because we spend so much money at a dealership level for all the vendors that come in, and they're supposed to help us make more money. They're supposed to help us take care of our guests better. And if we are not managing that vendor and that application software, whatever it is that it brings to the table, if we're not managing that, you can't really manage expectations and expect for the program to just do the work itself.
That makes complete sense because I know in my experience when dealerships, it tends to be like the smaller operations. They have more of their hands in it and they are more involved. And those are more successful when they sign up and they're like kind of not as engaged. Where it's like you can only do so much with the solution. If you're not engaged in the process and the vendor, then, you know, what are you going to get out of it?
Yeah.
Exactly. No. And it sounds like that it's important for someone like you to come in to manage all the vendors. Because how many vendors do you think a dealership works with? Like just one single dealership?
Gosh, I mean, I can only speak to the fixed op side, right? Because I don't really pay attention to the variable side, but no less than like 10 or 15. I mean, 10 is probably on the really low side. You know, where 15 is probably medium because you have, you know, the people for compliance and oil and all the parts vendors. I mean, you know those yourself, right? And then on the service side, you know, you have your MPI tool, your inspection tools. You have, well, those are the same tools. You've got your check-in tools, you know, recon. There's so many different things out there, and some of them can do the same things. And so you have overlap, and you have to determine if vendor A works well with vendor B, and can I afford to have both, or can I not afford to not have both?
Mm-hmm.
That's, I think, one of the questions that we look at too, because you look at expenses and how much you're spending on vendors, but we're not measuring that ROI either. We're not measuring what we're getting from that business, and that's huge.
That is huge. And what's your, I don't know if I wrote this one. I'm keep thinking of questions as we're talking now. So you're not prepared for this one, but what is your perspective on like just cutting expenses? Like when you leave a vendor just because you're cutting expenses, like how does that all play out? Like, do you feel like the vendor failed, or do you feel like, I don't know, what, I don't really know my question, but I feel like that happens a lot. They're like, we're cutting expenses. Yeah.
You are, because the first thing, they're like, oh, we have to cut expenses. We got to cut expenses. And my experience has been the first thing they start cutting is over in service, right? Service, it's a fixed number. You want a fixed absorption of, 75 to 85%, meaning they're paying, that much of the bills, right? And in sales, they're doing so much advertising and so many different things to bring in revenue for people to buy cars. And so in service, it's like, oh, well, people are going to come to service regardless, right? Because they have to have their cars fixed. And usually they're OEM specific, and if you're looking to buy an SUV, you may go to 4 or 5 different OEMs before you determine what kind of SUV you want. Versus if you own a Ford, you're most likely going to go to the Ford dealership to get your car serviced. Obviously, if it's in warranty, you certainly are. So, it's, the standard is that service is there. It's not going anywhere. Everybody needs it. But we still have to figure out a way to grow our business. And you can't really grow warranty, right? That's dependent upon the OEMs making, not great items. So you have to depend on customer pay. And you don't want to gouge your customers either. You don't want to take advantage of them, because we have to be able to make sure we're taking care of our guests. To me, that's the number one thing, right? Making sure that our guests have a safe and reliable vehicle to drive when they leave our dealerships, right? And we're taking care of them, and their safety is our concern. On the other side of that, we need to make money. So for vendors, when you let go of a vendor because of expenses, did you determine that you can do those services in-house? Will you do those services in-house? Have you trained your people to do those services in-house? One of the top things you'll see will be like texting. Like if you drop a texting vendor because there's texting in another application. Do they know how to use that application? Are they using the application? Can you determine any kind of ROI from that application? And those are things that when you cut expenses off or you're cutting vendors off because of expenses, if you're not making sure that you can do what that vendor is doing or in a roundabout way, right, we miss key factors with, our guests and being able to take care of them in the manner that they're used to.
Yeah, that's important. And I do think that does happen a lot, where it's just cutting expenses and not really assessing whether or not the team can actually do what the vendor was doing for them, right? Is that kind of what you're saying? To make sure, yeah. Yeah. And then so what are some ways to that dealerships maybe that don't have an Angela to enhance the vendor relationship, to make sure the team is using the solutions that that dealers are hiring for?
I think it's important to establish a connection with your vendor rep, right? So there is somebody that services your account, whether it's the performance manager or it's an account manager. There is somebody that is responsible for your store or your chain of stores. Have a relationship with that person and knowing what reporting looks like. Is there reporting? Can you tell me that this dollar, for every dollar that I spent on your application, that it brought in 50 cents or 10 cents? Like, can you show me the ROI there? Because otherwise we're just spending money if there's no performance metrics being reviewed, if there's no way to tie a dollar to a guest. You need to know what you're getting out of it. What is that vendor doing for my business? How is it benefiting me? And at the end of the day, how is it helping my people be better? And if I know that we have a better relationship with vendors, and we get a better ROI from the vendors that we have relationships with. The ones that we don't have relationships with, that we may talk to every 3 to 6 months when they happen to come around for a visit, if they come around for a visit, that application is not being utilized well. And, you want at least 80 to 85% utilization in any application that you're using. That's my standard. That's what I look for, because then that tells me it's not a knowing problem, it's a doing problem, right? So then we just have to continue developing and coaching those good habits, because good habits aren't just, you don't wake up with a good habit, right? You have to keep doing it and developing it. And so when you have that much utilization, they know how to do it. It's just they may not do it all the time. So that's what I look for. But if you're not looking at those things and you're not talking to the vendor and talking to the reps, your chance of success is going to be a lot less.
That makes sense. And what about for dealerships that already are doing really well and should they be vetting solutions? Like, if you feel like, okay.
Absolutely. We're always trying to improve, right? We're always trying to be, we will always want to be at a better version of ourselves tomorrow than we were today, right? So we're always doing stuff to improve ourselves, to improve our business. I don't think there's any harm in talking to a different vendor who can bring something different to the table. But I think it's important to also know what you're looking for, know what you want, know what the common pitfalls are, right? Which we talked about earlier. Knowing that my bad experience with vendor A, I don't want to repeat that with this new vendor. So for me, I ask the questions right out of the gate. Like if you and I are talking about, vendorship for our business, I'm like, okay, here are my 3 problems. Here's what I need to know. Can you do A, B, and C? And if you can't, have a fantastic day, because I don't want to waste your time. I don't want you wasting my time. We're not going to get any more of that, right? Time is not being multiplied every day and you just wake up tomorrow with an extra 24 hours. No. So I think it's important to know what you're looking for and know what you want. And we all have room for improvement. Every dealership, no matter if they're getting, all the awards and all the accolades and all the money, there's still more room for improvement. And growth.
Yeah, growth, because then you have to keep up with that growth, right? Because I'm always looking at my process and how I can improve, even though I feel really good. Like, how can I make it better? How can it be more efficient? And I feel like that's what dealerships also look out, because we're, in a sense, I feel like dealerships are perfectionists. We want to be the best. And
well, we sell time, right? We can't get time. We can't get any more back of it. So what we have within the dealership is what we're selling. We're selling the time. We're selling the technician's time. And if there are vendors out there that can help you be more efficient and take care of your guest better and have better retention, why would you not vet them?
Right. That makes sense. And then how would you recommend managing all of the vendors that are trying to get your attention? Because I feel like that's another kind of area of like, there's so many vendors in just the dealership industry or the auto industry. Mm-hmm. How do you manage and how do you because I feel like I get overwhelmed sometimes with people on solutions. I'm like, I don't have time for this. I don't know. How do you manage all of that?
Most of the time, by the time a vendor gets to me, we've had 2 other people look at it and they want my specific opinion because I have all the questions, right? I have all the, can you do A, B, and C? So I would say for anybody who is managing, let's say 3 vendors for a multi-point inspection tool or something, I would say have a list of questions and ask all of them the same question. Can you do this? Will you do this? What does your reporting look like? What kind of performance metrics can you give me? How do you determine the ROI? And ask them all of those hard questions, all the things that you need in your business. Can they meet your specific capabilities and what limitations do they have? And I think if you ask them the same questions, you'll figure out real quick who's going to be the vendor you spend time with, who you do a demo with. And, I shoot demos and they're like, all right, we have an hour today. And I'm like, oh, we need to schedule this when you have like 3 hours, because an hour is not enough for me. I have 182 questions and I'm probably going to ask you, 190 of them. So, I think it's so huge to ask questions and to be prepared with the things you absolutely know you need.
Yeah, so I was going to say, it sounds like you have a process, you have the questions, you're prepared, and that's how you manage and make the best decision. Because, it can be overwhelming, I think, when selecting all these different vendors for different solutions and making sure it's going to work. And then you're overseeing all the stores or all the brands, correct? So then you have to think about all the brands and the different personalities and the different everything.
You have specific OEMs who require you to use specific tools, and you can use anything else, but you have to use this component of this tool, and that comes into expenses. Like, how can you justify spending double the amount than some of the other stores, but you have to have multiple applications? And that comes out to parsing like what each one can do and how can I pull the ROI from each vendor to where we can show corporate and we can show the executive team, okay, it's fun that they have 2 applications. They're using them, and here's how we can prove it. Here's how we can show it. And it's creating business. The minute you cannot show how an application or a vendor is contributing positively to your business, you're either not looking or, and paying attention, or that vendor is just not the vendor for you, because you don't want them to detract from your business, right?
No, you don't. How do you manage tracking all of these? Like, do you have, I feel like because you're OCD a little bit, right?
Just
Small. I feel like you have a massive spreadsheet or something that's tracking all of this. Or is there a tool out there that tracks
spreadsheets, like a large S.
Yes.
I have never bet a spreadsheet I don't like. Like, we are friends right off the bat. I
do like having a spreadsheet. Everything
like if my cup could have a spreadsheet, it'd be great. And they can get overwhelming, right? And they can get annoying. And people are like, oh my God, she's sending out another spreadsheet. So I will change up my data. I'll change how I present it. I've discovered that if you give somebody the same thing every single week and you're like, hey, here's your metrics, they may read your email. They may click on a link. So every 3 months or so, or whenever I feel like the engagement kind of dips down a little bit, I'll change how I present the data. Data is all about the story you want to tell, right? And how you're going to tell it and what you need it to say. So for me, I kind of work backwards. My brain works backwards. We've talked about that before, like how I process information. So I will change how I present the data to someone. And I'm like, okay, here's the story we need to tell. Here's where you need to improve. Here's where you're doing great. So then I figure out the happy medium. And sometimes it's just an email with numbers, or sometimes it's a very convoluted spreadsheet. And I'm like, okay, click on tab A to get to tab B, and it's stereo instructions, which will eventually get you to tab Q. Okay, good. And they're lost. Fixed operations is all about, to me, being organized and being able to tell your story and talk about performance and how to coach to specific behaviors. And I've not seen a vendor have that. My son told me the other day, he's like, Mom, you should start your own business. And I'm like, he's like, you could create software. I'm like, David, I'm not creating software. Like, we're not doing that. Like, I'm not Apple. That's what Excel is for. Excel and we get along pretty well. And then every now and then Justin will pull out, he's like, click here. Now do control this. And then the data just like magically does this thing. And I'm like, could you send me that in writing somewhere? Because I don't remember how we just did that, but that was beautiful.
That was
beautiful. Get giddy. I just get giddy. And he's like, you're weird. I'm like, I know, but I can't help it. It's just, did you see those numbers? They multiplied themselves. It was great. I don't like
the work for you.
Yeah, definitely love that insert function, because math and we're not friends. We're enemies, mortal enemies. It could jump off the bridge. I'd be fine.
Okay, so you have spreadsheets, and so that's kind of what I was getting out of you, was like to track and manage all this. It sounds like we need spreadsheets to do that.
Spreadsheets and meetings. Like I do, I have a lot of Zoom meetings every week, and some days, Thursdays are my days, right? Thursdays I have anywhere from 11 to 15 calls a week, depending upon the week. And it's touching base with our vendors and our stores and making sure that the vendors' needs are being met and the stores' needs are being met. And if they're not, how can we meet in the middle? How can we get to where everybody's on the same page and everybody's happy again? And I absolutely love that. I love being able to bridge that gap between the dealership and the vendor and making sure that things are working properly. And if they're not, I'm like, hey, what's your ETA for fixing this? Because yesterday would be great.
Absolutely. And I think that it's so important to have someone like you in a dealership, because I know I just go back to when I'm working with dealerships and we're like kicking them off and managing that whole process of communication and making sure everyone's on the same page and talking. It can be so hard to get a parts manager to lock down some time because they're so busy, to have that support, like it sounds like that you're doing for your team, to like help coordinate that so that the calls do happen and the communication is rolling and solutions are being used. And
how many times do you go into a store, launch your application, provide training, and then you leave and that follow-up stops on the dealership's end?
Mm-hmm.
I see it all the time, and I'm dealing with one now. I'm like, hi, I need you to get this done. They're like, yeah, I'm working on it. I'm like, okay, I'm going to set up the call for you. We're going to get this done, right? Because we're paying for the service. We need to use it.
Yeah, that happens because, I mean, for us, I think we're a little bit different than other solutions only because a lot of what we do is like behind the scenes. It's not actually like a product that the parts manager has to use, but they still have to use us and communicate and understand the data that we're sending to them every month. So that's where it happens. We're sending the data, like you just said, and telling the story of like what we're seeing. But if that conversation never happens, how are they improving? How are they making changes? And so that's where it's like, we got to connect.
Yeah. If you're not having that communication, that dealership is not engaged. If they are not engaged, they are not going to use the application to its fullest extent. I like to cook, right? I love doing gourmet cooking and I love gadgets. And I bought this thing to make gnocchi and I was like, oh, this is going to be great. I have not used that joker one dang time.
What is gnocchi?
So gnocchi is, I know I'm not even saying it right because I'm not Italian. So all you Italians out there, I apologize. It's spelled with a G, but you don't pronounce it, but it's like you got to have like phlegm in your throat and you're like gnocchi. It's really weird. Okay. I know the comments are going to roll and they're going to be like, that's not how you say it. Anyway, so it's like a potato dumpling pasta type thing. You make mashed potatoes basically, and then you add flour and egg and you put it together. It's like a pasta, but it's made with potato. And so you make the tool, right? And then they have this board and you roll it on the board. You just kind of, and it makes these little lines and it's just so cute. And I'm like, this is going to be amazing. I have not used that joker one time. My point being this, I have this great tool to make this beautiful gnocchi and I've not made it yet, right? And no one's reminding me that I have it. No one's following up with me. Hey, you got to make some gnocchi? And I'm like, no, because Trader Joe's has like some really great selections in their freezer section and it's uncovered and it's great. And I don't have to get this board out and like, I don't have to try to mix, dough. And I have stuff to make pasta. So you have all these gadgets and you have all these applications and tablets and smartphones and, all these vendors come with apps and just all these shortcuts, things to make your job easier. And when we don't use them and we're not measuring that utilization and that performance, we are failing.
Yeah, 100%. But I just thought of something when you think about it, you have those tools to do it yourself, but Trader Joe's does it. Mm-hmm. So it's like almost easier because you're saving time to just buy it from and it's probably just as good as pretty done. That's almost like the vendors of like, it's almost better to let the vendors, even though you could do these things, it's almost best as long as you're measuring it to see if you're actually getting that. And you probably are. You're getting more time back in your life by buying it rather than making, I don't even want to say it because I'm going to say it wrong. Gnocchi.
I said it wrong.
I think yolk, like eggs, gnocchi.
It's got some egg in it,
Yeah, so gnocchi, I don't know. But yeah, you're getting time back in your life, which is better because you're buying it, making it.
Yeah, and these vendors, like their whole premise, right, is to make it easier for service advisors, technician, parts to do their job better, more efficiently. And if we're not staying on top of that to make sure that's what's happening, because the first thing you hear is, I do not want another application. I don't want to learn it. I mean, we have people who are just like, I'm not going to use that. I'm not going to learn that. And I'm like, well, you kind of are going to have to, because this is what we're doing. Like, this is what we're moving into. I promise you it's not going to be painful, but it's painful the first day or the first week because you have your own process, you have your own way of doing things. And now I'm asking you, hey, okay, I know that's how you're doing this, but I need you to tweak it here. I need you to add this piece, or I just need you to completely change it and do it differently. And people don't like change. I don't like change. Although I do like quarters. It's probably not the right change. But they don't like the change because it disrupts their flow, their personality, and the way they do business. But the automotive industry changes every single day. And if we do not adapt, we will fail. The number one thing to be successful in the automotive industry, whether it's the variable side or the fixed side, is adaptability. That is my 100% humble opinion, that if you are not adaptable, car business is not for you.
Mm-hmm. Although I want to say historically, most people don't like to change.
Yeah.
which we just said, but how do you overcome that with some of the people that, are really good for your team, but they're just so reluctant to the change and adapting? How do you coach them? What is your best advice?
My best advice is I will usually ask them, okay, tell me what you don't like about the application, or tell me what you don't like about this new process. Like, what is your apprehension about? And I will try to calm that aspect of it. And typically I'm like, look, I'm not asking you to do something I haven't done as an advisor, or I'm not asking you to use an application that is going to be terrible for you. And I will hit them with data and like, look, if you do this, you are going to sell 27% more of what you're already selling. They're like, well, I'm already in the green. That's fantastic. So if you're selling at a 52% and I can add 27% to that, what does your monthly or your weekly paycheck look like? Like, how fat are your pockets now? Like, and some people are motivated by that money and some people aren't. Some people are motivated by a work-life balance. And I'm like, okay, I'll give you that. What if this tool makes you more efficient so you can get out of here at 5 o'clock today instead of 5:30 or 6, because you still needed to do 10 follow-up calls where all I need you to do is just send 10 texts that'll take you a minute to text, right? So yeah. I think you have to know your audience, right? That's with anything in this world. You have to know who you're talking to. And I think if you know your people and you know your team and you know how, team member A thinks and team member B thinks and how they process their own information, you can coach to that specific fear or that specific concern, because not everybody learns the same way. Not everybody processes information the same way. So I find that knowing how people process information and how they like to operate, like, do they have OCD? Like, look at their desk. What does their desk look like? And seeing how they write up a guest in the lane and how they talk to people will tell you, those 3 things will tell you so much information about how they can or will handle and adapt to new information, new processes, things like that. And then you have some people who are just flat out refuse, and that person is not adaptable. And so you have to weigh, is this person still good for my business, my organization? Can I adapt to their inability to adapt? And some people will adapt to that and some people won't. And, I don't make those calls. Thank God I don't make those calls. I get to work with our staff and coach them and, work with our executive team and help them understand where we are and what we need. And, at the end of the day, I want to make sure that everybody in Fixed Ops, all their needs are being met. They're happy and they're healthy and they have what they need. They have the tools they need to be successful, because we are not paper and penning it anymore.
Thank God. I think you have like the best job in the dealership, I would have to say.
It is not a bad gig.
And you can tell that you love it, and you can tell that you're really good for it because of the way that you just described how you understand how not everyone fits into a box, and knowing how to read people and adjust your approach to make it all work is what I gathered, all of that. So I'm going to switch it up because we're almost out of time. Before we start recording, I learned something really cool and fun about you that I want to try now. So, Angela loves Legos. And it's the complicated Legos. And my whole thing with Legos, I was like, I love puzzles, which you described as it's like a puzzle, but I don't like following directions. But the way that you described it made it sound like, how OCD, like you have to organize the chaos because they give you chaos.
Yep.
So please describe everything so I don't speak for you about you. Like,
I feel like you would like it because you like parts, right? And parts, you have to be extremely organized, right? Everything has a bin, everything has a location, a stocking group, a place, right? So for me with Legos, because I have OCD, I'll take a bag of Legos and open the bag up and I just start sorting everything. And my brain instantly just goes, yes, ma'am. Because I feel like you do so much all day long, and sometimes I get overstimulated, and I have to find something that calms me down. And sorting does that. It is the weirdest friggin' thing on the planet. And my son, so we've been buying Legos for David since he was like 5. And then he was a manager at a Lego store, and he got half-price Legos. And I was like, dear God in heaven. So he was bringing home Legos by the bag full, like, every day. And I'm like, son, they're not paying you in Legos, right? He's like, no. I was like, so you're buying Legos? He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. So you're not making any money? He's like, yeah. I was like, okay. Well, then we all know. So he would bring on all these bags of just Lego pieces. And I bought all these containers, you know, like the things that you put like the screws and stuff in. So I bought all these containers, and I would sit for hours and just sort these Legos over the last two years, just sorting Legos. And it was so calming, and so it keeps my brain level. And so he buys me Legos still. And I have all these Harry Potter Legos, and you can see them in my office anytime on a Zoom meeting. Just say, hey, and we'll show you the room. They're everywhere. And they're the bigger sets, and some of them are the UC sets, which I can't remember what UC stands for, and he's probably going to be yelling at me later. But they have like adult sets that are like 16 or 18 and older, and those are the ones that I typically will buy or get and put together. And when it's all done, and you can sit back and you're like, I sorted all that. I sorted my brain. I worked through whatever was, ailing me at the moment. And then you have this piece to just kind of reflect on, and then the downside is you have to dust it later.
Oh, that's a downside.
I'm not crazy about that.
I do feel like that's better than reorganizing the house every couple weeks, because I do feel like that's what I do. I sort and reorganize everything because I'm
if I have to mate another sock, I might just burn them all. Like, my sock drawer is like, it's bad. It's bad. Sometimes my OCD is really bad, and Dave comes home and he's like, I'm not going to know where anything is, am I? And I'm like, nope, sure aren't, but good luck finding it. He's like, you had a bad day? And I was like, yeah, day.
It happens all the time. But it's just like, where is this? You probably moved it. And then I get mad that he doesn't know or remember. But why can't you keep up?
I'll buy a new one. Jesus. But Legos are fun, and it's like a puzzle. It is a puzzle, because you still have to put things together. And it's 3-dimensional versus just being flat with a puzzle. But if you like puzzles, you got to check out White Mountain Puzzle online. They have the puzzles that it'll be like all the cereal boxes from everywhere. And there's like 50 cereal boxes in this one puzzle that you have to put together. And that to me is like parsing data, because I'm looking for all the words to spell Cheerios. So when I sort puzzles, I have puzzle sorters. Big surprise, shocker. I'll sort stuff by colors. I do all the edge pieces. Then I'll sort out, like, we have one that was cowboys and horses. So all the horses were in a bucket, and all the cowboys were in a bucket, and then all the words were in a bucket. And I'm like, okay, so then you start putting together words, and then horses, and the cowboys with the horses. And that is exactly how my brain works. It is extremely compartmentalized, and it is extremely sorted. There's like a million filing cabinets up there, and every now and then they all burn down, and I got to start over again. But
I feel like I resonate with this so well. You're speaking my language. I think about when I was a kid, because my grandma, that's how I got into puzzles, is my grandparents always had a puzzle out, and they had a puzzle room, and the whole entire wall was full of puzzles, because we would glue them together.
Cool.
Oh, I love puzzles. I don't do it as much. I do the little kid puzzles now, like sitting there. No. Well, actually, I got this little wooden one that you have to follow this. I have to follow the direction and put it together, and then I have to put the rest together, because it's for a 3-year-old or 4-year-old. So I'm like having fun with it. My daughter's like, does one. She's like, I'm done. I want to do them all.
I'll be over here watching TV. Have fun. Yeah.
Exactly. Oh man, fun stuff. So I really enjoyed this conversation. I hope a lot of dealerships get a lot out of this and just managing vendors, because this is really like the core of our business is vendors and dealerships. That's how we make everything better. So is there anything that you wanted to add to wrap us up, or anything I didn't ask you that you wanted to talk about?
I would say the biggest thing would just be communication. Get that relationship going with your vendor, that rep, and set and manage expectations. They work for you. You do not work for them. Like they have a product they are selling. They have a service they are selling, and it is to make your dealership better. And if it doesn't, move on to the next one. Like, as they say, cut bait. But cut bait and move on to the next one, and make sure you're getting that ROI and that 80+% utilization. And can they show you where every dollar comes back into the dealership? To me, those are the main things that I take away with the third-party vendor.
Yeah, and that's great. That's a perfect way to wrap it all up, because this was a really great conversation. So, we wrapped it up. We got to talk about some fun Lego stuff and the important stuff. So, Thank you so much, Angela. And if anyone wants to reach out to her, find her on LinkedIn, and we'll have all the links in the show notes. So, thank you again.
Thanks, Kaylee.
Thank you for joining us. PartsEdge, the power tool for your parts department. We hope you're leaving feeling motivated, challenged, and inspired.